Welcome back, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Vosteed Corsair, a new one that has just been released. Right now, the only variation they have is the black wash blade with the green micarta scales. They have the other colors out for pre-order that should be dropping here soon. So what we have here is a drop point blade steel on this one's Nitro V with a nice stone wash finish. Got a nice little ramp right there for the thumb and a grippy jimping. You have a pretty needle-like point there for piercing task. You have an excellently done sharpening choil that should give you a lot of light before it starts to widen up in the back right there. You have a 3.22-inch blade that has a nice high flat grind that comes down to around 13 to 14 thousandths behind the edge. So this thing should be a slicing machine. Let's find out. Man, if you ever gotten a Vosteed knife, you know how sharp they come, and this was no exception. This thing was super sharp, very, very slicey, passing through the cardboard very fastly. I'm sure I heated this blade up pretty darn nice. And you have enough straight edge on this drop point to, probably do some longer rows of cutting than I'm doing here. But yeah, performed nicely. The sharpening choil stayed out of the way. I love the way they did that one. Excellent job so far. Now we're going to test the ergos on this piece of birch. And right away I started putting some pressure into the wood just to see how comfortable those scales are. They're nice and contoured. They fill out my hand good enough. They are a little thin. I think they're like 0.48 on the thickness, but the clip stayed out of the way of my palm. I guess it just depends on the size of your hand. I had no issues with it. No hot spots. I could imagine if I did this for a long period of time, it would probably fatigue my wrists and forearms because of the thickness of those scales, but they're nice and comfortable. It's a neutral grip. The hammer grip was a very powerful one. I could really put a lot of force into the wood, and I thought it did a great job. This is a very twisty, knotty piece of wood, so, there's my problems there. Now we move to the 3/4 inch twisted sisal rope. I'm still out of the 1/2 inch, and right away it's popping the rope fairly nicely. I like doing these type of cuts whenever you have this type of belly, because you can start on that belly and just push down, kind of like a rocking motion almost, and it makes this cutting on a flat surface a lot easier. And I'm impressed so far. It's really blasting through this rope without a problem. I end up making 41 cuts, and like I said, this is 3/4 inch rope, so definitely it definitely did a good job. Performed nicer than some knives I tested in the same day in higher end steel and way more money. So definitely impressed. It had a good aggression to that edge, and it seemed to be holding it fairly nicely. We'll definitely see how it does once we move on to the next test, but so far, excellent. Because this tip is higher above the pivot, it's going to be hard to get it into drag cuts like that because of how high you have to lift that handle. But you can still use that belly easily. And like I said earlier, it makes doing the rest of this type of cutting a lot easier as well, because I'm using that belly to start the cut by pushing it forward into the material, and it's blasting through all this without an issue whatsoever. It really impressed me by this point, and then once I started doing the denim cutting, I was even more impressed because it still has a lot of aggression to that edge, or at least it feels like it does. And yeah, it didn't slow down a bit. Seems like they do their Nitro V fairly well. I would have to test it alongside their 154 CM to see if it's any different. See how that edge is now? Yeah, I think it's still pretty darn good. Now let's take a look at the deployment in action. This is a dual thumb studded knife, very snappy action, nice drop shut action once you release that lock. Very, very nicely done. You can also slow roll it rather easily. And being that you have a crossbar locking mechanism, this is a completely ambidextrous knife because you can swap the clip around also. It is riding on cage ceramic ball bearings, giving it that nice drop shut action. Let's take a look at the handle area. Your pivot is a Torx T8. Unfortunately, the body screws and clip screws are both T6. I would have loved to see them all T8. You have nice contoured micarta scales on this one. Nice and grippy canvas micarta. Very nicely done. Got 3 little lines that are milled into the scales just for an added aesthetic. You got a semi-decorative pivot there with a pivot collar. This one looks like a brass pivot collar, just giving an extra pop of color. It comes with a filler tab to cover up the slot for the clip on the opposite side that you don't use it on. If you prefer a backspacer look instead of just a standoff, it also comes with a geared backspacer and the hardware to add that on. Take a look at the inside. They did an excellent job of relieving the weight by putting some lightning holes in there. It's an inset stainless steel liners, and this thing is very, very lightweight at 2.87 ounces, so it's under that ounce and inch that some people enjoy. The ergos on the handle, since you have a fairly neutral handle and those contoured scales, it was very ergonomic in my hands. The clip stayed out of the way. For me, it's just going to depend on the size of your hands. Mine are medium-sized hands, and I still have a little bit left over there. So no matter which way I hold it, it is comfortable. If you're doing draw cuts, all that, I find it to be rather comfortable. Like I said, you have a tip-up, deep carry, left or right-handed position pocket clip that sits rather deep, and they did an excellent job of insetting that clip into the micarta, and the screws are countersunk, so it's nice and flush. Nothing should get hung up. You do have enough room for most pants. This is a crossbar lock, and lock up on mine, solid, no up or down, no left or right on my particular knife. This is an adjustable crossbar lock. They have 3 little holes on both sides, just like the Kaiser clutch lock, to where you can either tighten the tension on those Omega springs or open them up some. So that's always nice to see. Now for some quick size comparisons, we have the Vosteed Raccoon and the Vosteed Nightshade. It's a little bit smaller than the Raccoon and a little bit larger than the Nightshade. Next up, we have the Ontario Wrap Model 1 and 2. Lastly, we have the Benchmade Bug Out and the Hogue Deca. It reminds me a lot of the Hogue Deca, similar aesthetic. It's a little bit longer than the Deca, and it's a little bit more comfortable because of those contoured scales, and it's very similar in overall length to the Bug Out. It's a hair longer. And my only really nitpick is I wish these were all T8 instead of T6. However, I've never really had a problem with any of these stripping, so I'm okay with it, especially at the $69 price point. What do I think about it? For 69 bucks, I think it's a no-brainer. The Nitro V is done well. It's very slicey. It's nice, comfortable. I think it's an attractive-looking knife. Excellent action, and it's got the robust crossbar lock that is adjustable. So yeah, I definitely can recommend this one if you think it's something that you would enjoy carrying. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. I hope everybody's having an absolute amazing day. I will see y'all on the next one. Peace.